Welcome to another episode of the Urban Impact Economic Development Show, where we are interviewing some of our, who we like to call impact owners. These are people that are making an impact out there in the communities, and they've likely had some kind of touch point with Urban Impact ourselves. So with us, we have today
Hannah.
This is Hannah, and what's your last name, Hannah?
Fuchigami.
Which is a legit last name. We were talking about that earlier. Hannah, thank you for joining us today. Legit.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Let's get into it, yeah. Sorry, might have to edit that out or not. Hannah, you're in business. Mm-hmm. What do you do? What's the name of your business?
So the name of my business is Picnic Party Seattle. We do luxury picnics and now kind of expanded to events of all sorts. So event planning, party planning, but our bread and butter, our heart and soul is luxury picnics.
Okay, so what does the luxury picnic look like?
Oh man, it looks like not your average picnic. So we're going luxe on quilts and blankets and pillows, and we'll bring a little table and set the whole thing up for you with real plates and real glassware and do a whole beautiful tablescape so that you can have a fancy setup kind of
That's legit.
In whatever setting.
So you're essentially you're setting the stage to be able to have like a luxury dinner, breakfast, brunch, whatever it is, anywhere on the earth, essentially.
I mean, I'm not going to say anywhere because then people are going to be like, oh, great, hike a mile in with all your stuff.
That's true.
But yes, that's kind of the idea. And It started because during COVID, of course, we could not have normal gatherings or parties. And so there was kind of this question of okay, what do we do to make, people feel celebrated and special when maybe you can only hang out with your roommates or your partner or whoever is in your little quarantine bubble. So it's how do you have a really special experience with 3 people? And therefore,
boom,
luxury
picnics.
Yeah.
Okay, so the cool thing is with us entrepreneurs, as most people know, we are a springboard for ideas. All right, springboard, we get ideas every day. I swear, ideas are landing and then flying away in my head every minute sometimes. How did you go about taking your idea, like you saw this need during the pandemic, and turn it into something real? What was your first step?
I love this question because I think when someone has an idea and they feel so full of inspiration and oh my gosh, I'd love to be the one to do this. Yeah, it is not real until you take a step toward it. And so the step that I always recommend to people is to snag the Instagram handle and purchase a URL. Because the Instagram handle, you'll feel like at least you have something and it's completely free, right?
Yeah.
And then the URL is that's a legit step, and it could only cost $10 or $20 maybe.
Huge.
But it's okay, I've at least put 1 foot forward. So what I did first was get the Instagram handle.
Okay.
And this was in May of 2020.
Wow,
so it was just a little idea living in the back of my head. And I started posting, I think I had 3 stock photos on there at the time. It was nothing, right?
Okay. Yeah.
But I kept kind of going through the idea in my head over a few weeks. And I was I think that this could be a thing. But how the first picnic happened was that somebody called me from the Instagram that they had just found.
No way.
And was you do picnics, right? And I was yeah. And at the time, I didn't have a picnic table. I didn't have anything. But they're okay, great. I want to set one up on this date a couple weeks out. And I was okay, we'll do it. We'll be there. And so we worked with them of okay, what do you want? And, where do you want it? How do you want it? And that was our first picnic. And it was kind of just, okay, let's do it. And so I got to buy pillows and tables and find out what to do.
That is so legit. Okay, we're going to break that down. That is so juicy. First of all, you gave us a tactic, which I really appreciate. Okay, so this isn't just ideation type stuff, guys. Hannah took action. All right, breaking this down. you got the Instagram handle,
Mm-hmm.
and then the domain.
Mm-hmm.
And by doing that, you feel you're building the momentum.
Yeah.
And then going backwards, you said that the first few stock photos, it was nothing. It was something.
I mean, it was something. And I love the branding and design aspect of it. That's in my background. I was kind of just playing around with stuff at that time, but I knew I kind of wanted to create this feeling with the brand. So I was like, okay, you know.
That's legit. So you must have had your contact information on the page.
Mm-hmm.
How long did it take between when you created the page and did you post on it consistently before you got that first order, or did you just set it and then you kind of...
I posted on it every once in a while. It would kind of just come back into my mind as like, oh, this is something that, you know, I could do. And weirdly, we started getting followers. I mean, not a lot. It would just be like, oh, weird. Like, I got a follower on this page that I'm not really putting any effort into seemingly. So that's how I kind of was like, okay, maybe there is something behind this idea that at least people are attracted to. It was a few weeks before I got that call.
Got you. Yeah. So you're kind of playing with experimenting. Mm-hmm. What were you doing while the page was existent? Mm-hmm. And you're just kind of like dibbling dabbling for a few weeks? Like, did you work a full-time job at the same time? What did that look like?
Yeah, I was working in corporate marketing at the time for a small tech company here in Seattle. We had gone work from home and, you know, restructures in the company. I was on a different team that was based in Australia. So just everything was remote. Yeah. Which, you know, was, of course, at the time, everyone was doing that for COVID. Right. But I had this kind of hunger for like something else. Like, what can I do that I can invest in the people in the city here that I love so much and do something a little bit more creative? Because I've always loved gathering people together and good food and hospitality. Absolutely. So that's where it came from. I would walk around Seattle during COVID and feel so full of inspiration and wanting and a desire to do something.
That's powerful. So you're walking around, you're like, there's got to be something different.
Yeah.
Like, we need to do something different. A lot of you remember what it was like, you know, March 2020, when nobody knew what was going to happen with what. You know what I'm saying? And then next thing you know, they start shutting everything down and all kind of industries are affected. Yeah. But during that time, you didn't just huddle up. You know what I'm saying? You're walking, you're thinking, and then dreaming, and then you did something with that. Okay, this is legit. So let's get back into it. We have the Instagram. You got your first order, which I think that's amazing because it was like, hey, I'm going to do what I know how I can do. And then now you got a call. Now it's like, all right, let's put the business together. Yeah. After you did that first order, what was your next step from there?
My next step was to try to build systems around it so that we could keep delivering that thing. Because the first one, if you saw a picture of it, it would look very different from what we did now. I mean, same concept, but the materials are different and the whole kind of look and what's included in the package, it's very different because we just had a lot to learn. Okay. It was about building systems around that. It's like, okay, I need more than 4 plates, you know, because what if I get an order for 6 people, a booking for 8 people? So it was like building out a place in my garage that I was renting at the time for stuff to live and asking friends and family if I could do picnics for them because I wanted to practice and I wanted to get more content and have more photos of our actual work. So you hit up
friends and fam just to say like, was this for free? Like, hey, oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. So you were like, hey, I'll do this for free. I just want to practice my craft. I want to get more content for my IG. Let me just do this for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it was like my friend was moving into a new house at the time. So I'm like, great. Like, can I do a picnic in your front yard for you and your roommates? And she's like, yeah, of course. I mean, who's going to say no to that? So
come on.
It's like, great. And then I can take photos of it and that gets great practice. And I can see, okay, how do I make the setup time shorter? Like, how do I make cleanup time shorter? What bins do I need to have? Like, all of those little things you just find out through the process. And since I was working full time, I didn't need the money to support myself at that time. So then I could do things for free, which I know isn't everybody's story. Right. It'll depend on what works for you, but that was what worked for me.
I think that's brilliant. I want to take a step back into who was supporting you through this. Like, were you just like, hey, I'm going to do this business and I'm going to just figure it out myself? Or how did you get the belief that you could try? and
Yeah,
that you could succeed?
that's a great question. At the time, I was living with my sister, and she has a background in finance and operations.
Okay.
She had worked for an HR startup, doing a lot of that stuff on the back end. I would definitely credit her with being one of those people that told me a little bit about like the stuff that I didn't know, because I think that's a huge thing for entrepreneurs, because we hear about, oh, there's these taxes, oh, there's these licenses, oh, there's like these systems we should have in place, and what do I need? What's an actual legal requirement versus what's just a nice to have versus what's something I can put off. I would say she was super helpful in that journey. I think I just also saw other people figuring it out, like social media and books, and like there's so many free resources out there and people that I just admired that I'm like, well, they figured it out. Maybe I could too.
Come on. Like, well, I mean, we all bleed blood.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And that, I really believe that's one of the most powerful affirmations. Like, if you can do it, I can do it.
Right.
If I can do it, you can do it.
Yes.
If she can do it, you can do it. All right? Like, we're all living life. We're all struggling with something. But when you want something, you will figure it out. But maybe the thing is, you have to figure out what you want. How did you know that you wanted to do picnics? I mean, above all the other things that you could have did, how did you know this is the idea?
Kind of a unique origin story that I often gloss over is it wasn't the initial hope. I started a business called Rhubarb Co. That is still the parent company of Picnic Party Seattle. If you look at the LLC name, it's Rhubarb Collective LLC.
Okay.
DBA, Picnic Party Seattle.
Okay.
That was my initial thing, and I was going to do marketing consulting and coaching. I was thinking about doing pop-up dinners and events as part of that, but Picnic Party was the idea that ultimately took over and resonated with people the most and had the most commercial viability, because it just kind of grew without me doing a whole lot, to be quite honest, because it was the little COVID bubble. I didn't know that picnics were what I wanted to do. But it felt like a great intersection between the skills that I had and the actual viability of like, is this something that people want? And then the feasibility of like, okay, I don't have, $200,000 to like go out and start some crazy business or get a brick and mortar space. What do I have? I have a few $100s that I can buy my first inventory with.
Yes. Come on.
Yeah.
Hannah, I'm so grateful you're here. This feels like a masterclass, legit. Because breaking that down, this picnic thing wasn't the first idea. So you were trying before this one popped off. And you're like, okay, this is my first idea. All right, hey, you know what? Let me try this. The cool thing is you said something very cool. It's the skills that you had, an idea that you can get passionate about, and then you found out, oh, the market wants this. Success, there are no secrets really. It's a formula and you can really figure it out. And so this is why we're here doing these interviews like this with people that are in the trenches, so that we can give you these gems. If you're thinking about, what is it that I want to do? Obviously, we all want to be successful, make money, earn our time back, live the lives that we want to live. How are we going to do that? Listen to Hannah's story. She was trying something. So she wasn't sitting there thinking on her couch. She was taking action, doing something. She already told us, you can get an Instagram page, create one. You can do that for free. Buy a domain. You can go to things like domain.com or just search domain on Google. You'll have a bunch of different places where you can buy a domain and take action. Something that I really like that you said is it was a skill that you had and you found out that the market wanted it. And then it just boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
Blew up. That's so sweet. So in 3 years, how many picnic parties are you doing? Like a month? What has kind of been the growth? What does that look like for you these last 3 years?
We have done, I think, close to 700 events as of now, which is a lot. And, some of them are for 2 people and it's date night and we count that as an event.
Yeah, absolutely.
Others are, 75 people, corporate picnic. Like it's a whole thing that takes more than just me, obviously, to pull off. Now in the summer, which is definitely our busiest time, as you can imagine, we do anywhere from 8 to 12 events a week to give you a ballpark.
Okay.
We've had, I think at our highest point, because we hire seasonally for the summer, so we had a team of 9 people that helped us to actually do all of those events. It takes a lot of people power to pull off an event.
That's a lot of events. To get to that point in 3 years is sick. Now, you told me something before we got on camera about, I think you did this within your first month, this crazy thing, because we're asking like, Hannah, how many times you've been interviewed? Please tell us the story of the first time you got interviewed for your business.
One of the things that I knew going in is like, okay, how do we get the word out, right? Because that's the other thing. It's like, yes, the market could want it, and yes, I could have the skills for it, but if nobody knows about it, then you're dead in the water. One of the things I knew was like, okay, I gotta get this out, because clearly people like this idea and want it, and I think it could be really popular, but how am I gonna do that? Because I'm not gonna spend a bunch of money on Instagram ads or this or that. I wanted some organic PR. And so I ultimately just messaged journalists in our local area with kind of this story, right? And you kind of have to pitch it as a story. So it's like, hey, this is what I'm doing because of COVID. This is now a new way to think about celebration and gathering. That's the message I sent out there to see if I could get any bites. And King 5 Evening, a journalist there, picked up the story. We were able to get a live TV segment on
TV.
It wasn't live, but it was like airing.
It was recorded.
It was recorded, airing on TV. Yeah.
We're counting that. You better not judge. That was live, okay?
It was live. We had a segment on King 5 Evening magazine. I remember sitting there the night it was going to air and watching our Instagram count and being like, okay, I hope people see it and like follow us and whatnot. That was a great boost for us.
When you sent those messages out to the journalists, were you like, oh yeah, I'm so confident this is going to work, like hands down? Or were you nervous? Were you scared? What was that feeling like?
Oh yeah, it's definitely nerve-wracking to put yourself out there. And I've had kind of a similar experience messaging like with influencers, because I was kind of doing this at the same time too. I think there's a thick skin you build up being an entrepreneur. Now it's easy for me to say, oh yeah, just go out there and message people or send a message and see what happens. But as a really new entrepreneur and as someone who's just hearing that, you're like, oh my gosh, I would never do that. Like,
journalist King 5 interview?
Right, like that's so cringy. I don't want to put myself out there in that way, but I would just encourage you to go for it, because people are almost never as scary or as intimidating as they seem. And B, the worst that could happen is that you get a no, or you get a no response. You'll survive that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's the worst thing that could happen by putting yourself out there. So.
It's so true. The no is not going to kill you. And they say you need 7 no's till you get to a yes.
Right.
There's actually a guy, Myron Goldman, something like that. Someone I'm sure can correct me on his name. Black dude, white beard. He's got a big YouTube. But he was saying something about how he created a game for himself where he would try to get to 10 no's.
Yeah.
And so he just started making offers. And then eventually he played the game so much that he started to not get no's because he started to figure out when people were going to say no anyway.
Yeah.
And then he'd reroute it. This is a game, really. At the end of the day, a lot of these pieces of entrepreneurship and business is a game. And it's like, play it. You're never going to win if you don't make a move.
Definitely. Don't get discouraged when it doesn't work the first time or the second time or the 9th time, because you never know when the yes is going to come right after that.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's huge. Hannah, as a kid, all right, before you became Boss Picnic Hannah, all right, so pre-Boss Picnic Hannah, do you see any times in your upbringing that gave you the character and the resilience and the strength to be able to do what you're doing today?
This is going to sound so corny. I was a Girl Scout.
Let's go.
And I sold quite a few boxes of cookies.
Quite a few. Okay, so I feel like we know how much you sold.
That's funny because I was just talking to someone about this, but I was like, I feel like that's when some of these skills started to develop, because I would be out here in front of, Safeway, the bank, whatever, with like a gorgeous cookie display.
Oh yeah.
If I do say so myself.
Okay.
And just like kind of developing that, the beginning of, okay, presentation matters, like marketing matters. And if I want results, I have to put myself out there. And I was pretty shy as a kid too.
Okay.
So I'm like, I'd rather not ask people if they want to buy cookies every time I see someone exit the store, because that's uncomfortable. But little 9-year-old Hannah had to do it if she wanted to sell 700 boxes of cookies so that she could get her first iPod Nano. Like,
let's go.
You know, it's just like those little things is like those lessons started to kind of build up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Were you like the Girl Scout with everything like
all the
super
patches
accomplished and like, was that you?
I feel like I dabbled. We did pretty good, but we
Okay.
were mostly in it for the camping trips.
Oh, okay.
So,
Fire. Gotcha. So you're like, okay, I'm in it. I don't need to be like super scout, but I'm like, I'm good scout.
Yeah.
So did you win the iPod Nano?
I did. Yeah, we did it. Because here's the strategy for selling the most boxes.
Pay attention. If you're in Girl Scouts, you know somebody.
I don't even know if they do this anymore, but the best slot was Friday at the bank, because you could sit out there for 2 hours selling cookies and it's payday, and people are like, oh yeah, great, I'll get cash when I go in the bank and come buy cookies. So
that's brilliant. That's a hack, because I've only seen people at Safeway, but that is smart. That's studying human behavior. That's great. Yo, if you know someone in Girl Scouts, forward them this video, because you might have just won a lot of iPod. Well, actually, they're probably
I know they're probably like have way cooler prizes.
Well,
I don't know.
Somebody's about to get rich off of that idea.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. I feel like I should start just sitting outside of a bank asking people for business on a Friday. So, anyways, Wells Fargo, I'm coming.
Let me know how that goes for you.
It might be creepy. They might move me out of there. That is actually whose idea was it to get you in a Girl Scouts?
I think my mom. Okay. And she was a big part of this business too. I partnered with her when we first started out, and to this day, because she had been working at a preschool for a long time, and COVID, one thing or another, her job became part-time. So she was also looking for another way to make some money and to do something. She is like so helpful in a way that, because her brain just works so differently than mine.
Okay. How's that?
She's a detail person.
Okay.
And so she's the one that's thinking of, okay, how do we transport 6 plates and 6 goblets in a crate? And so she'll make like templates for that, and then do plate inserts, and it just makes the process so much more efficient. Okay. Like, she thinks to that level of detail of the how, whereas I kind of am more in the big picture sort of a thing. I think we complement each other. She's definitely been encouraging throughout the process too.
That's legit.
Yeah.
Is Dad in the picture? What was he thinking?
He's always loved the idea of entrepreneurship too. And his mom was an entrepreneur. And so I think he has like a fondness for that.
Yeah.
He's been really supportive too. That I feel like I'm really lucky in that sense to have like 2 supportive parents of me quitting a corporate job and like doing this thing that sounds crazy. You
were able to do this job, and now you're not working at corporate anymore.
No, I'm not. About a year in, I knew that I had to make a decision because I couldn't do both well. I was like, going into our next summer, I hope that we're going to be really busy. And so I can't do both well. So I had to make a decision, and I chose, okay, let's try this entrepreneur thing out.
Let's get it. And oh my gosh. I feel like, especially if someone's watching this and they're like, okay, I do want to have my time back. I do want to be an entrepreneur, but that's also scary.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, you're leaving the security of a steady check, whatever benefits that they were offering, you know, the Delta Dental, the Kaiser, whatever it is, you know, for picnics. But you believe in this, and you think that, hey, this can really be something. What was that process where you knew, hey, you know what? Like, give me the story of when you gave your work that notice that you're
oh my goodness. Yeah, I was so scared, because I just knew that it was a huge risk, and I was walking away from a corporate salary and those benefits and this track that I had thought that I was going to be on for my whole career. I had another job offer in hand. I was already thinking about leaving my current role. I had another job offer that on paper was kind of like, oh, this is exactly what I wanted for my next career step. This is perfect. But then I had this picnic party business that was also growing. It just seemed like the right time because, again, I was lucky because I was in a position where I didn't have anyone depending on me. Like, I didn't have kids. I didn't have a mortgage. Like, I was just renting. I felt like if I don't do it now, there's never going to be a better time. Right. The worst thing that could happen, it's kind of just me.
You can bounce back.
Yeah. I feel like I was just in a good position to take more of a risk. Absolutely. Whereas for someone who does have more people counting on them, you know, that adds a whole nother layer of challenge and things to think about. But for me, it was like, what's the worst that could happen? Like, I go back to corporate.
Yeah. All in. Let's go.
Yeah.
Now, did you have some savings at the time? Have you been putting some things in the war chest so that you can kind of have some security?
Yeah. And up till that point, I hadn't even taken any money out of the business.
Wow.
Which I don't like, you know, again, because I had a full-time job. So I was like, I'll just keep this income and then I'll reinvest everything that I make back into the business. That already put us in a position where we could have like a little bit of a runway. I mean, not a ton, like a couple months maybe.
Yeah. How important would you say is it for entrepreneurs to reinvest into their businesses?
It's super important if you can do it because of the risk. And I don't think I'm a super risk taker, despite what we were just talking about, but like, oh, it'll be fine. I like to have some sense of, even worst case scenario, this will still work out. For an entrepreneur to set themselves up well, that, okay, bad month and there's still a course of action forward and you and your people will still be okay. I think that that's the most important thing. And then of course to be able to reinvest, and that's how your business is going to grow and how you can level up and you can make those choices of, we want a bigger space, or we want to upgrade our inventory or our equipment or buy a vehicle or whatever that thing is. That's how you do it. But I think baseline, which sometimes even the baseline feels difficult to do, like for speaking for myself too, like making sure that you're comfortable with and what your people need from you.